and Sammy Mills, who is going to be on with us today. And Sammy and I have had some great chats. And basically, we both love the Course in Miracles, and we both are practicing it and talking to each other about it. But we like to talk today too about it's kind of like the generational gap, because I think the course has to be filtered into the language where it can be most helpful. And Sammy, I said, "Are you millennial or Gen Z?" She said, "I'm both. I'm right in the middle. I was
Yeah.
born right in the middle." So thank you for coming on today to chat with me.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I just also want to mention how cool it is that I just really truly was downloaded by Jesus to email this random person that I didn't really know, you, David, and now we talk all the time. So it's pretty amazing what happens when you like just actually listen and tune in that way. But yeah, so I was born in 1997, so I'm like the Gen Z starts then. So I feel like I kind of can understand both sides of that, and I see most of the issues between those two like generations that were when I start talking about or even saying the word God, there's either they're interested or there's a major trigger, right? And so when I even first started doing like Reiki and stuff like that with people, I would have to ask them like if they were even comfortable. And I think it's just because of the way a lot of them were grown up in churches that made them feel like they weren't good enough, that God was something that was going to hurt them, that they were going to go to hell, that they were unworthy, stuff like that. And that can, really, really hurt your subconscious beliefs, and it can be really hard to recover from that. And so it's like one of my desires in life to really try and like be an example of what God truly is, which is just love, right? So I'm excited to talk about that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I know when we started talking, you shared that you were working on chapters of a book to really kind of come from the perspective of how you've encountered the course and practiced it, and what you find really helpful in it, and things that you felt could be more helpful for your age generation. And that was an exciting conversation. And it's beautiful too how I think you're very uh, articulate, you're very intuitive, you're very tuned into spirit, and how wonderful, what an adventure that gives you in life. Because I think we both feel like you're going to be used in the years to come in amazing ways that is going to reach a lot of people, and particularly those of your generation that are really drawn to it, but have some questions and some reactions to certain words in the
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, and they have every right to, right? Because there are some times that I read it that I was like, what is that? I even had to ask myself sometimes, why am I so triggered by this word? Like, I grew up like just going to a private school, like that was like technically a Christian school, but I was never like forced into it or anything. And it was never anything that was like negative, really. And there were still things that triggered me in the course. But I think that's also part of the course, right? Is to trigger you a little bit. And so, yeah, I feel like everyone deserves to be able to ask those questions and to get, a response from someone who really empathizes with that and doesn't just try and justify it in a way that maybe someone who's a little bit younger just wouldn't really take to. Um, so yeah, I definitely appreciate what you said, and I definitely feel a calling towards this for sure, and speaking more about it. And yeah, you mentioned the book that I'm writing, and yeah, I didn't even know I was gonna write it. Okay, I just got like downloaded with this book all of a sudden, and yeah, there's just a whole chapter on there about how words are so much like we put so much bias on words, and like what one word means to me could mean something completely different to you. I mean, even like if I think of like orcas, like my favorite flowers, or like you could be like, oh, I don't care about that word at all, and I could be like so happy about that word. Or like when I think of dogs, I love dogs, but people who don't like dogs might not associate the word dog with such great meaning, right? And so it's no different with God, right? It's like if you grew up in this amazing, positive, place where God was always like, your true divine self, then God has always had a great meaning for you. But for most of us, it has felt like God has let us down. And so we start associating that word God with pain and with suffering, and it's hard to trust something that has caused us pain, right? And so we put so much value on words. And I always just kind of laugh because I'm like, we name something God that is so much bigger than any of us really know.
Bigger than the words.
Yeah, exactly. We only have words to use. Exactly.
Yeah. But what I like about it is I enjoy open-heartedness and open discussions and open dialogues, especially when we get deep into what people call spirituality. But I also mostly love the practical application. Like I've done many lives, but you're the first one that said, "Hey, I've got a song. Did you ever hear this? I want to play it before we start." You're the first one that said, "Yeah." I said, "Great," and we just kind of listen to it and meditate to it, and it just brings us into the present moment. Now that's practical application. Another thing is, it's Super Bowl Sunday, but actually I looked at it and I said, "Oh, the halftime show, it's Usher." And I said, "Never heard of Usher." And then both you and I talked the other day, I think it was, about Taylor Swift and coming and everything. And we both know Taylor Swift, but for me, I think I might have to tune into the halftime show to experience Usher because that word meant nothing to me. So that shows you it's just kind of getting into the vibe of joining in the moment and learning and expanding from the interaction. That's what I love about it.
And you'll know who Usher is because that's so funny that you didn't know who Usher was.
I didn't.
Yeah, but so it's no different than like someone who's never heard of God before, right? Like it really is the same thing. Yeah, no, for sure. And I love that you brought up that we, did that song because being in the present moment, and you brought up the fact that like we did something that allowed us to not just read or talk about the course, but we acted in that state and actually did it in this, in this human body form, in this Sammy version of me. I have to live out what I'm studying, and I'm a huge advocate on that of like the action part of it. And so like I just told you this morning, a great example is I woke up and I just felt so exhausted, and I felt like, oh my God, I was just like, I started crying, and I was just like worried that I wasn't going to show up in the best way I could. And instead of worrying immediately, I just was like, I'm just going to ask like Jesus and God to just like, in the Holy Spirit, or I like to call it my divine self, like, can I have this energy right now? Like, let me come from a place where I can speak through love and be an extension of love, and let me have that energy for that. And within like a couple minutes, I had it. And it's like, that is what I believe taking action is like when you don't want to get up because you just feel like it's so much easier to be like, oh, I'm just going to fail at this. But instead you choose differently, and you realize you're so much more powerful than what your ego is trying to say that you are in those moments.
Yeah. I just love how open and willing you are. You at 26 years old, you've been a teacher, you've done counseling, you've really developed a lot of skills, like really to a great extent. And it's almost like it's just the exciting time of your calling is coming in, really integrating in you and starting to come forth. And I feel like it's going to move pretty quickly for you because you're so ready. And I can relate too, because I know we've talked, sometimes there's sleepless nights, there's and pains, there's just sometimes it's just seeming stress that comes up when you start a new job or have to make a change that seems to be a change in form, and you're just practicing the course with all of that. I remember recently we talked and you had gone to a job. This was not your current job, but a previous job. And you just could not compromise. I absolutely love that you told your boss just what you felt in your heart, and you didn't even have a concern in the world for what would happen next. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing, I think, in life, to be able to follow your heart and not compromise, even in a situation like a job situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it wasn't right for me. And like, and it's funny because as soon as like I got let go, as they said, it was like I was so like peaceful. I was like, that job didn't make me feel good about myself. And yeah, and I appreciate everything that you said about me and like all the things that I've done. And you know, I really like my biggest focus is being as vulnerable as I can, like on just like lives or YouTube on everything, because like, you know, I think a lot of it has been fear of failing for me a lot, even though I've done so much. I always had a fear of failure until recently, of like just going for things, asking for what I want, like this is truly what I want. I want to speak more about the course. I want to be a leader in the course. And like for a long time, like I don't know why, but there was something that just like I didn't feel worthy, right? It was like this feeling of unworthiness. It was the ego telling me no, like you can't do that, like you're not ready. Um and I felt all this pressure, put upon me from other people, of what they expected me to do. And it's just kind of about tuning out everything else and tuning out what everybody else is thinking that you should do, including yourself and including your own ego, and just surrendering and listening to what I say, Jesus tells me what to do, because 99.9% of the time, if I choose what I want to do, it is not going to end well, and it's going to just like take me in a spiral. And so I've noticed that like when I've surrendered to like what it is that actually is going to happen in my life, and I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to go with the flow, that I'm not afraid anymore. Whereas before I was like trying to achieve this like goal that like I don't know, that like was so ego created, right? And now it's more just like I just want to be of service. And I think that when you can get to that point of surrender, like to completely surrender to that, that's when I feel like the clarity truly comes in, of like this feels right, this feels right. And I might not know why I'm doing it. Like I told you, I got a serving job, and I was like, why am I serving again? And they're like, well, it's to build your confidence up, to start speaking more to people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like just having complete trust and not being afraid has been really incredible for me lately.
Yeah. Well, I sense for you, the course is a very experiential thing, and it's not really an intellectual thing at all, which is refreshing. You are really super in touch with your emotions, which I think is a great strength. Sometimes people think, oh, I wish I was less in touch, but I always say, no, no, the more in touch you are, the better, even though it looks sometimes messy and
Mm-hmm.
can be threatening to people. I think the other thing is you seem like super intuitive. Like I've noticed when I've talked to you, even with things like a different job, you're really deep down inside praying for what will expand me, what will expand my awareness. And then you quickly pick up whether vibrationally it's going to be a place where you can expand or not. And even when we talked about, you were talking a bit about your boyfriend, about how right and compatible you are. That's a lot of wisdom. I mean, there's a lot of people tuning in that probably can say, oh my God, that's an area in my life that's just totally disasters. And she can feel intuitively when her skills, abilities, kind of her, you've even shown and taught human design, so you can pick up intuitively where something's really going to be helpful for both of you to expand, even though
Yeah.
in the world people would say, how do you do that? Because it's all intuitive.
Yeah, because like to be fair, like it's been work. Like the relationship isn't like perfect and just this blissful thing, but the thing is, it's like the compatibility is there because I feel like we can see each other, right? You can see each other enough to start to learn how to compromise, how to communicate out of love and not out of place of ego. I feel like I noticed that my relationship has taught me what it's taught me the most is that I think that we often go into like arguments just trying to like win or like pick a battle or like just like be kind of almost above the other person instead of like coming together in a place from complete love of like we're two people and the problem is between us. It's not it's in between us, so how can we come together and fix it instead of making it so personal. Like I think you have to kind of put it outside of yourself so that way you can like do it from a place of love rather than a place of frustration or anger. And yeah, I think relationships can be very, very like incredible ways to learn and practice what the course is all about, which is forgiving yourself when you aren't perfect to your partner, and also learning to forgive someone else for, like needing to grow as well, and like being able to, just learn from each other and accept each other exactly as they are. And that's not always an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
So yeah, so it's been something that I've really loved the most about the course is like since I've been a kid, I've always loved talking to strangers. I've always connected to strangers, and I've always like been able to love people on that almost like I don't know, it's not super personal. It's just kind of like you just have that love for them. And I think that has helped me a lot when it came to the course, because it's all about loving every single person, loving your brother, right? Loving every stranger that you see, and being able to know that like if someone's having a bad day, or if they are being rude to you at the grocery store or whatever, like that is a call for love. That is a moment that you can choose to not get angry because it's not your anger, but to just ask them if they need anything. Be like, are you okay? Or you can just give them a smile or something, or anything that you could think of or intuitively comes to you that might completely change the dynamic of that situation. Because sometimes I think we just so easily get annoyed at people who are so rude. Where for me, I think of it as like, if someone is being rude or angry, it's because they are clearly dealing with something, and that is them asking and calling for love. And it is our job to answer that call.
yeah, it's beautiful. The idea of having just a shared purpose that you can share with everyone, and like you say, it's not a personal thing. It's more of there's a kindness, a gentleness, a respect. I see you. I'm here. I hear you. I'm listening to you. Right
Mm-hmm.
before this interview, I did another interview with a friend of mine from Malaga, Spain, and he does international gatherings on the course and over there in Europe. But he basically flew all the way across to Mexico from Malaga here to be on a 2-day workshop with me, and he was attending that. And during the workshop, he said, "Well, here's my issue. Can I talk about my issue?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I've got a partner. We've been together 5 years. We love each other. We're going along." And she got pregnant. And I said, "Oh, okay. What's the issue?" And well, she wants to have a baby, and I'm not interested really in having a baby. And so I said, "Can you help me with that?" And I said, "Yeah, I think you need to pray together. You really need to pray together and go into that space of that state of just unconditional love. And then just from the prayer, if you pray together, just watch what happens." So he told me today, I brought it up. He went all the way back over there. He went into that state of just pure, pure, pure love. And when he went into that state, he opened up his eyes and he just said, "I love you unconditionally, and I am not going to judge anything that you say or want or anything. My job is to love you without any expectations and conditions." And she responded by saying, "Oh my gosh, I just was coming to the very things you just said, and now when you spoke it, I feel it." And they both just joined in absolute unconditional love and acceptance, knowing that that's the whole point of the relationship. And then they were just going to let it unfold and love each other regardless of any of the circumstances. They weren't going to make an issue out of it between them. They were just going to love. I'm here to love you. I promise. I commit. He said, I commit to love you. And it was just so beautiful.
Yeah, I like that gave me actual goosebumps, and I never get goosebumps. Like that was because that is exactly it. Like that, wow. And to be able to acknowledge something like saying this, like, I don't want to have the kid, that in itself, I feel like a lot of us cannot do that, right? Like that's hard. So I feel like it's also about just being able to be completely honest about these feelings that you're having, and then coming together and then going in that state and not being afraid of what's going to happen as the outcome, not being afraid of the worst case scenario, or not being afraid that, it's all going to fall apart, but just having that trust. And wow, yeah. I mean, that's all any relationships are about. That's all anything is about, really, truly. Even in the course, it's about just giving people unconditional love. And it's like, I know when I give people unconditional love, you feel unconditional love more within yourself, because by seeing your brother, you see yourself. So it's like, I think the world can be we can so easily get distracted. And we can definitely easily fall from that. Personal experience for sure. I mean, the reason people always are like, you've done so much. I'm like, yeah, I could feel like I had a lot of pain and a lot of things that I was like, enough is enough. I gotta do something different than what I'm currently feeling. And so I do think that, like, there's always a choice. And I feel like the choice is always to just choose to love, even though you might not feel like you can even love, to just trust that you can, or to talk to somebody about it if you don't feel like you can,
Yeah. Well, one of the topics I thought would be fun to just start off with too and talk about is, I've been on a number of interviews when I go back for a repeat interview, and they will say, here's my basic questions, or my 3 questions I have for you. And one of them for sometimes is, they say to me, define God. And I sense from you, I always laugh because I go, oh, that's the one thing I don't.
I was gonna say, what's your answer?
Yeah, I tell them, I said, I could say love or eternal grace or infinity or something like that, but I recently have been saying, I actually feel that God is not meant to be defined. It's meant to be known and experienced. And I sense from talking to you, when we've just had a few talks, I sense you have the same kind of intuitive feel, like, well, we want to have a meeting and a connecting point, but the ego will take that word God and will try to turn it into a block or a division.
Yeah. And put it in a box, right?
Yeah,
and
box.
You're right. God is that feeling when you feel it pour into you. I remember one time when I first started the course, and I was listening to an old Christian contemporary song. I don't know why. I listened to it when I was 16, and it was super depressed, and I would drive around my car and I would listen to those songs. And I listened to this song. I just, for some reason, it came in my head, just listen to the song. And I was like, okay. But it hit me so differently, right? Because the words felt different after reading the course. They hit me differently. And this flood of I can't even call it love. I don't even know how to describe it. Came over me, and I bawled my eyes out in pure joy. And I just kept looking up, oh my God, how is this even possible? How is it even possible to feel this? How is this me? Because that is true. That's who I am. How have I that's all I am, is that feeling. And so when I think of what God is, it's that's the feeling. It's that feeling. And it's just so, that it's indescribable. And that's the thing, is that we don't like when we can't describe things, right? It's very frustrating when we can't describe things. And, you know, it's something that is truly indescribable. But when you do feel it, it's life changing. And then it can also be hard when you don't feel like you have it, you know, all the time. And that's like when the forgiveness comes in as well. So
Yeah. I think, you know, what you remind me of too, whether people call it indigo children or just the ones that have come that are pretty much ready to let go of the structures and the institutions and the things of this world. And you have that vibe, that frequency about you. And that's why I feel like your calling is coming in, and it's going to come in really, really rapidly. But I was out in Utah at one point, and a young man, two friends, two young men that were in high school. They were studying A Course in Miracles when they were in high school, when they were 18 years old. And when they got to be about 22, they were having conversations, and they would say, let's go. We should talk to David. We should get on there with David and talk to him. And one of them said, I'm going to go out and hang out with David. I'm going out and hanging out. And the other said, well, I don't know if I'm ready to do that, but let's maybe have a video call. But the one that did come out, his name is Nicholas, and he's, again, the same vibe as you. He came out and he started to just immerse. And
Aww.
at one point, he told me he had quit university and he was just giving his whole life over to the course and everything. And he said, oh, and my dad would like to talk to you. Would you have a phone call with my dad? And I said, yeah, I certainly. So his dad called me up, and he said, yeah, I'm Nicholas's father. And I said, oh, nice to meet you. We talked on the phone a bit. And then he said, you know what? My son Nicholas, he's actually feeling like this is his life's calling. He's only, like, I think at the time he was maybe 22.
Wow.
And he's feeling this is his life's calling, and he wants to give his whole life over to that. And he's really sincere about this and everything. And then the father said, and what do you think? What do you think of all this? I said, oh, I think it's so noble.
Oh, noble.
It's so noble. He said, really? You really? I said, yeah, I can feel it. And in this community that I'm with down here in Mexico, Nicholas is still there handling tech stuff, web tech stuff, and pouring his heart into the course and the lessons, practicing every day, doing expression sessions, letting his emotions up, being transparent. And I think he's probably maybe around 20, 29, late 20s now, but you know, it's just, let's go for it.
Yeah. Nicholas and I should hang or like talk sometimes. It's like, it sounds like he's exactly, I mean, that's exactly pretty much when I started too. And, you know, I definitely had asked you for people exactly like that, because there's not a lot of, I don't know a lot of people that are my age that have kind of had those same experiences, but I had that exact same experience, not necessarily with the course, right? I've only done that for a couple of years, but it was like, I just knew like there was something that, like, there's nothing wrong, right, with having just whatever job you need to have, or like having that calling, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just felt like there was something inside of me that needed to like my soul needed to start to come out. And like when it wasn't, I was getting so depressed and so lonely, and I felt so broken. And that's like what led me to Reiki, which was the first thing that really started to inspire me, and then human design, and then theta healing. And then it was when I got to the course, I was like, this is it. This is what I've been doing all this stuff for, is so that I can, you know, have all this, you know, healing within myself so that I can be of service to others. Like I needed to heal me, what was going on within me, and I needed to be able to see who I truly am, who we truly all are, so that I could extend that back to people, because that's that feels like my calling. I mean, there's nothing else I'd ever want to do in this world than to just be able to talk to people and make them, or just be an example of the love that they are, because, you know, I see it. It does happen when you don't forcefully do it, but you listen and you just allow someone to be who they are, where they are, exactly as they are, and you love them no matter what. And people feel that, and it makes a huge difference. And I feel like that's like the most wonderful gift I can give in this world. And it's like the only thing I want to do.
Yeah. How beautiful. And it's funny how all the different steps you've taken, Reiki, human design, it's funny how as we go along, we start to see more and more the ahas of all the connections. I mean, recently I was told that underneath, before Reiki became kind of known so as Reiki, there was all these deep teachings from Jesus and Buddha that was underneath, part of the evolution of what came to be known as Reiki. And
Yeah.
find that with everything. We start to look closer into it, we go deeper, and we're taken back to the source, back to God.
It's all the same thing. And that's why when I was like 7 years old, I would be like up at night so mad, and I'd be like, why is this church telling me that someone who is praying like 10 times a day halfway across the world, that clearly believes in God way more than me, because I don't even know what it's like, I'm like a child, they're telling me that they're gonna go to this horrible place called hell? I'm like, no, I don't. That's not gonna work for me, because I don't believe that. That's ridiculous. And it would just make me so mad. My mom would always be like, I don't even know how to answer that, because you're not wrong. And it was like one of those things too, where you know, I feel like the course allows you to let go of this fear of like God and hell that I just fully have never really thought was. I mean, when you start to understand that the ego is like almost like the hell, right? Or like the devil per se,
Itself. Christian word for it.
I know, like poor Lucifer. I always felt so bad for him. Like, that's a bad rep, you know? Like, poor guy.
What a heart you have. Oh, Lucifer. You're ready to take Lucifer in and give him a cuddle.
Of course. I mean, he's part of us. Like seriously, like we just blame all of our problems on this one person, because like I'm just like, come on. Unbelievable. Like, it's just so funny. It's like, it's another example of how we need something to blame outside of ourselves. And, you know, that's definitely another action call that I feel like I tell people is like, when you are feeling like you are mad at somebody, or like you don't like somebody, or you just like, oh my God, like everything's going wrong. Take a moment to ask yourself, like, what's going on within me? What can I do for me? What inside of myself am I not taking care of? Because I notice that like when I'm having like really like rough days, it's usually that I'm not taking a moment to slow down and to breathe and to allow myself love. And so then it's like I'm projecting a world that isn't loving me back, right? And so it's just kind of, it's like once you see it, it's so hard to unsee, like that really, I mean, what's going on in here is the projection of the world outside there. So it can be incredible, or it can be pretty painful. And that can also be a lot of weight on our shoulders too. And it can feel like a lot. But again, it just comes back to surrendering, because if you surrender, you can't fail.
Yeah. It seems like Jesus was teaching in the Bible, don't let the one hand know what the other hand is doing. That when I've traveled around the world, I've been in 44 countries, and I've been to thousands and thousands of course groups. And sometimes people will just look at me and they'll give me a big hug, and they'll just whisper in my ear. They say, like, I'm a recovering Catholic, or I'm a recovering Protestant, or something in my ear. And the thing about it, I find, is the more we can come to any teaching or any tool without bringing the past and past judgments, then it's more effective. And I think I've known a lot of people that came to the course with kind of fresh. I mean, I was raised in Christianity. You went to Christian private school, so we had a little bit of indoctrination.
Yeah.
but still, it's the trigger points is what we need to unlearn based on our pretty much our past learning, past theologies, past beliefs. Yeah.
Exactly. No, and I think you make well, and I also, what's interesting is on the other part of it as well, is it's not just about letting go of those beliefs and just completely letting go of what you believe a certain word even means, like what you believe hell or like that evil, like, or that I think like the Old Testament, I feel like God was kind of like, you know, the darker version of what they were calling God or whatever, like, you know,
Right.
like just kill them all. I don't know. So, like, and so I think like we have to let go of like all of those concepts completely, like of what God or that word even means, and then rebuild, and then also go back and forgive the religion that did that to begin with, and let go of your feelings towards it as well. Because I think that it's one thing to start to have, you know, that new relationship, but it's never going to fully get there unless you forgive, you know, the, like, I just know a lot of people who like have been really traumatized, and they have every right to be by the church that they've been in, but it's been the part that's been the hardest for them is forgiving what happened and forgiving that church, and for like still loving those people, because ultimately that's the whole point, is to like be able to forgive everyone and to be able to heal, not because when you forgive other people, it's like really you're healing yourself too. And so it's like not only, it's also about just like forgiving the person that might have triggered you into fearing God. I remember I was at this place called Turkey Hill Ranch Bible Camp, and my mom always thought I loved it. And I told her like years later, I was like, actually, I hated it like the whole time. I was like, they made us go to church like 2 times a day, and it was just like a lot. And I was like 9, and so, but there was this guy who would come in every single year on a Wednesday, and he would have this map, and on the map it'd be like, do you want to go to hell? Like, you don't want to go to this fiery burning, this whole big ordeal. And I laugh about it now because I'm like, I was like 9 years old. Like, what? Like, I was terrified. Like, I wouldn't go to sleep every single time for like the rest of the camp there, because I was so afraid that if I didn't do exactly what they were telling me to do, that like if I died that night, I was gonna like go to hell. Like, that's how much fear I had. And it was like, I started to get to the point where I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, even at that age, it never clicked to me. And I would ask like the people who were supposed to have the answers these questions, and they wouldn't have the answers. And so like it kind of took me stepping away from God completely to be able to fully actually understand what God even is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing too, the encounters we have. My friend Frances Zhu, she passed away recently, but she was over in doing a tour of the Course in Miracles through Australia, Perth, and then Melbourne, and then she was up in Tokyo and Okinawa, and she met. She was open to doing one-on-ones with participants at the gatherings, retreats too, and then she got a whole list of names, and one of them was a boy who I think she said he was like 9 years old. No, he was 13 years old, and he had signed up for a one-on-one.
Oh, wow.
She met with him, and she's like, "Oh, did your mom bring you here?" Because he's like 13 years old at this Course in Miracles retreat, and he said, "No, I brought my mom." And she said, "What?" And he said, "Oh, I've been studying the course since I was 9 years old." And she was like, "So you brought your mom to a?" Yeah, she was curious, so I brought her.
That's awesome.
And then she said, "So you're 13 now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm 13." And he said, "Oh, I teach Course in Miracles seminars and retreats." And Frances was like, she was telling me like, "You gotta be kidding me? Because we both were laughing because we were like, what were we doing when we were 9 years old? I mean, we were like, oh my God. So, and then she was almost in disbelief. She said, okay. And then he pulls out his phone and he said, here's all the flyers that I designed for my retreat.
Aw, I
He was
love
actually
that.
giving multiple retreats on A Course in Miracles at 13. And
As
then
you should.
recently, talk about generations. I was some friends of mine from up in Arizona basically said, one of them contacted me. Her name's Jessie, and she said, my daughter talks about you all the time. She's got you. She's listening to you, doing workbook lessons with the course and the text. She just is on and on with her mom, 11 years old. When are you taking me meet David in Mexico? And her mother said, well, we'll see. When are you taking me to meet David in Mexico? Very persistent. So finally, she calls me up and she's like, my daughter wants to meet you. And actually, my partner and I are coming down to Guadalajara and could we come to your house and meet you there and everything? I said, sure, let's set up a date and time. So they come, she's there, her partner, and the 11-year-old daughter. So we all sit around the table, and she's got a few, kind of shy, but she's got some questions. And then her mother finally starts talking and saying, well, when she was like 8 or 9 years old, I had to work, so I had to leave the house, and I had to leave her all alone by herself there. And she would say, go on, Mom, as long as you put the audio of David on with the workbook lessons, you can go do whatever you need to do. I'll be fine. So she just saturated herself with Course in Miracles teachings and everything. And sure enough, she came down here. Before she came, people said, you're having an 11-year-old girl come to meet you? What are you going to talk about? And I said, I think we'll find lots to talk about, actually.
Talk about Jesus.
Talk about Jesus, talk about God and love. And when she
Yeah.
came down, she had a sense of, her mom said she's in leadership. So I started to talk to other mothers who also had children who wanted to maybe have online gatherings about their parenting things with the children and working through it with the course and guidance. So I helped set up some things with a woman down from Australia and people from Europe and Florida and Arizona. It was New Mexico, Arizona. And the beautiful thing was, I said, when I talk to her, I get the feeling that she's got like this youth minister vibe. Like she could
I love it.
start a youth ministry at 11 because her mind's already there. She's already there.
Yep. There's just I think that's really cool. Thank you for sharing those stories. I think that is incredible. Like that's like kind of what I meant by like this leadership or this desire of like service is like to have, if I could ever have anyone just want to listen to something that I say because it makes them feel like God's love. I mean, that is beautiful. And like, that is incredible that you do so many incredible things, and then you do it out of a place, not because you like want something in return, but it's like your energy is, you do it because you love it. And that's what I loved about you right away. It was like, you're so authentic and you just do it because it brings you joy and it's what you're meant to do. And I think that we're going to start to see a lot more younger people like that as well. And it's going to be exciting that we like to have and hopefully they'll have those mentors to be able to kind of help them grow in that way. And I just want to answer, because someone did ask this question of Sammy, what do you mean you had to give up what you thought of God? I think what I meant by that is just that I had to give up the idea of what I was told God was in this religious sense. You have to do all these things in order to get to heaven, and you have to believe these specific things, and you had to kind of be in this box, right? And so I had to kind of let go of the box of God, what was being told to me was God, and what I needed to do in order to be a part or be worthy of God. I needed to let that go so that I could come back and realize that by finding the love within myself and the love from my guides was kind of how I was able to then really connect to God and be like, whoa, like it was in me all along. Like and like one of my favorite things that the Course says is God needs us just as much as we need God. I mean, that to me is like, I wish I could just say that to anybody who's ever worried about like God not loving them, because I'm just like, wow, like that to me is just like so cool, right? Like that's so cool.
Beautiful. Wow, it's fun. I just looked over at our chat too. She said, somebody said, sometimes the quote, church is your family or your old belief system and parent. And it's just like the world's a reflection. It's a mirror of our beliefs and thoughts and feelings. So we all just have to pray inside and go, all right, Spirit, I want to connect with you. I was going to ask you too, just the name Jesus. It's kind of interesting because I sense for you it's a living, vibrant connection. It's not so much a historical figure. It's a live present, right?
Yeah, he's living here now. Yeah. I don't really, I don't know why. I never, what's so funny is like, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but like, I almost like, I was like, man, everyone's guide is always like Jesus or whatever. But like, he just came to me like, and I don't know, like, I feel like I started to think of him as my friend. I was like, I'm going to talk to you like you're my friend. And it started when I had my Reiki 2 attunement, that he came to me and he talked to me during the Reiki 2 attunement. And I was like, and he never shows me his face because he's like, everyone has all these images of me. Well, and we all just like think of Jesus as like these people that we've seen in movies or whatever, or just pictures. And so I never see his face, but I just know it's him. And we just chat. Like, I don't know, like I feel like I can just chat to him, and that's why I call him Jay sometimes, because it's just like, it makes it, he came to me at this place of like, I don't feel ashamed when I feel like I am not doing the right thing. Like when I know that like my ego is definitely running my life, I just go to Jay because I feel like he's my friend and I can just talk to him about it and be like, man, I don't know what to do, but I just feel really low right now. And I don't feel like I even have the energy to try and change it. And I want to feel love and I want to feel God again, but I just don't right now. And I don't know what to do. And I feel like he can just like really help connect my heart back, I think, is like why I'm so drawn to him. It's like, it feels like it's almost like a pat on the back all the time, like this pat on my back. And like I've had people I've done Reiki for that I've literally put my hand on their back because I felt Jesus was like wanting to show that like their heart needed to open a little bit. And so like I feel like he's a friend, I don't know, I just think he's someone who like we all can be, and we all literally can be right now in this life, right? It's like Christ is like what we already all are, and we just like, it's hard for us to believe that. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that, right? Like I'm like, but like he came to show us that like he's not better than us. He came to show us that that's who we are, that this is who we truly are. And it just took us a while, and it still takes us a while to really understand what he was trying to say and what he was trying to do. But I think there's probably been a lot of people like him, but they're maybe just were more not known, I'm sure that there's been other people that have come and been like that, for sure.
Yeah. I love it when people send me movies and videos and songs and everything. And I just recently got sent a movie of a woman who is 85 now, but when she was in her 50s, I think she was 54 when her husband passed away. She became a widow. Then when she's 60, she got the strong guidance to go to Ghana, Africa, and she just poured her heart out with these African children, and people invited her and welcomed her and loved her. So I just watched a bit of that today, but I think the thing maybe we can talk a little bit about is I sense that you're very, very intuitive. So when people come to even questions like the course and should I be connecting with people, I know you've gone to some course groups, but actually the people at the course groups are, you know, quite a few years older than you are. We talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah. So I'm the young one. They took me.
yeah,
I'm like,
you're the
yeah,
young one, but
yeah.
actually, we have some friends. We both have friends in Hawaii. You really kind of reached out, you know, based on the internet and different ways that people came to you, and you intuitively called, reached out, and you actually have. We have some of the same friends, but they're sprinkled around in different places.
I know.
I think that's kind of a cool thing because that just shows how it's an intuitive thing. Following the guidance opens the doors. It's not about trying to find a formula or I need to
Yeah.
attend this or that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, and that was the big thing for me too. Was like my business, like I it was draining me, and like I was like I can't do this anymore. And they were like, yeah, and like that's when I heard Jesus be like, because like just go get a job because we have other things planned. Like, you know, like I had to really let go of what I thought was gonna be the way that I was gonna be of service, and actually do what was going to make me happy and be the right service. And like it's just crazy how we think that we know what's going to make us happy, but in reality most of the time, at least for me, I didn't know, and I would be like, I know that this is going to make me happy, and then it never did. And so when I just started listening to like whatever I'm being told to do, I just do it. And so I love what you said about that lady who just like did these things that she probably never thought that she would do, because you like that's what starts to happen. You never think you're going to be able to do these things or be able to have these experiences, but it's like when you just start to listen, you will have them. Like it's a crazy, and it doesn't even take that long. And I did see like a question on here I did want to answer of says, yeah, of course they can ask questions. Yeah, of course. It says, is it wrong to ask God for justice against another brother or sister that continues to threaten to harm me and my family? So I guess my question first would be, what do you mean by justice? Because I feel like, again, that's such a man-made way of thinking. I'm like a concept of like, I don't know, I'm thinking like law and order, right? Like, what does justice mean for you? Does justice mean like being able to just have peace, or does justice mean that you want like some sort of revenge? I don't know. I think I would need to know what you mean by justice. But I think if it was me in that situation, I feel like I would just ask, why is this happening? What am I like, why is this being projected outside, right? Because everything that's being projected outside is within, like you're projecting it. And so I would ask, well, what am I supposed to learn from this, and what do I do? Instead of trying to take matters into your own hands, ask what to do and really listen. And it might take a few days, and just keep asking, and then actually follow through on whatever it is. Because I also think like I understand at the same time, on a fundamental level, if you are being threatened or if you're afraid, that is something that you can't just like spiritual bypass and pretend like that's not happening. So I think, and just making sure that you can be in a safe place, and that you can get to a place where, you know, you can not feel afraid or threatened, but also like, and after you get to that place, then you can have the time to try and heal from whatever it is that happened. Because I feel like sometimes too, like you have to be realistic as well. You know, when we talk about the course, it's like we still have to live in this life and this stuff and make sure that we are safe. But I think that oftentimes what we think justice is not usually going to have the best outcome, because usually, like, if we just ask what to do, then we can't go wrong, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it's practical. I feel I always say pray, listen, and follow, because I remember the workbook lessons. I've just been going through them and doing some lives, but lesson number 23 is I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. And
Yeah,
for
that one.
me, what that says is I can escape from the way I have seen the world, like a fragmented, judgmental way. I can come to a non-judgmental view of the world by giving up attack thoughts. Like you were sharing earlier, that all grievances are in our mind to be released, and we
Mhm.
need to come fresh with that. Okay, reset button today, new start, whatever seems to be going on, my perception is an opportunity to release attack thoughts.
Mhm.
And I find that is so helpful. I mean, even years of doing the course, it's just that's the daily practice that if the ego wants to have a reaction to anything, it's like I always come back to that. How do I feel? How do I feel? And then start to realize that I'm just perceiving a mirroring of any thoughts that I hold on to in my consciousness. And it's only for release. It's just forgive is the key word. And to me, that simplifies things. It's about the practical application of letting go of attack thoughts.
Yeah, and that's a great one for relationships as well. Is like, like talk about resentment. Like you have to be able to wake up every day and let go of anything that you are holding on as far as an attack thought towards your partner, like, or anything. It's like that's a chance every single day to wake up and be like, okay, let's go back to this unconditional love. And also, I forgive myself for having those attack thoughts because, like, when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, you're right. A lot of the times that I think we want, like, we don't necessarily try and understand someone. We just get annoyed that they're not doing what we expect or want or think that they should be doing or behaving. And like that's when the attack thoughts come, right? Like that's when like I think people start to feel threatened or to, like, get to a point of like having so much anger towards each other is because you're both just so like angry at your own self that you're just attacking each other, right? And so I feel like it's a matter of just, my relationships with everyone in my life, every single person, including my brother and my father, and Michael was even close with my mom, and even my mom, like, have improved immensely just because of the fact that I just love them for who they are and accept them fully. And I don't ever expect them to be anybody but that. And if I do, or if I get irritated at them, I laugh at myself and I'm like, oh, sorry, ego Sammy's coming out for a second. Because, like, you really can't, you got to just love people for who they are, because that's the whole point. And, we are in these personality little bodies at this time playing these little fun roles. So, it's a matter of, yeah, having that practical application of loving and forgiving that we are in this state currently and living it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I think too, it's like here you are, and you're just getting this calling. You can feel it coming of extending and extending in a whole bunch of ways that are just going to be shown. But I think what comes to me too is like I show a lot of movies, and one of the movies I showed a while back was called Violet, and the movie was made by a producer director called Justine Bateman. I don't know if you ever heard of the Family Ties show with Michael J. Fox. It was from way back. It's like me
yeah.
not knowing Usher. You're like, what? I never heard of Family Ties. It's way back. That was back
I
when I
just,
was in school.
I feel
But
like a lot of people your age would know who Usher is,
yeah, yeah, right. Maybe I just need to open my musical eyes up a
though.
little bit. But I used
I
to
just,
listen to a
I'm
lot.
feeding my ego. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
giving
But
you.
the funny thing is, she was played Michael J. Fox's sister, and now she's out there, and she made this movie Violet. And I heard she wrote a book called Face, and a friend of mine told me about it, and now she's got uh, Carrie Carrie Moss and Carrie Ann Moss and different ones going to play in the movie. But it was all about how in Hollywood and people who become more public, we'll call it actresses and models and all these things, then they have Instagram accounts and YouTube accounts and all these different things. But there's a lot of times what they call trolls that come on and just comment on them and
Yeah,
on their face and on their age and so forth. But what she realized was, she said, I think I'm going to write a book, and now she's making a movie, because I think for someone like Justine Bateman, who's now again getting into the public eye with her movies, it's just the same mind training opportunities that you have in a relationship, in an interpersonal relationship, because the whole world is a reflection of thoughts, and it's kind of like it can seem more intense when you're
when it's a lot of people.
And there's a lot of people. I've heard a lot of actresses and singers that have said, "Oh my gosh, I go through all this intensity when I go through my."
I would just not read them. I wouldn't even read them. Honestly, that's why I don't even like social media that much. I just feel like I'm just gonna do my thing. You guys can talk behind my back. It's all good. Do what you gotta do. And then because I just feel like it just feeds into your own insecurities that you're trying to we're not trying to go backwards, and of course we all are going to go backwards sometimes, but that's okay too. That's funny you use the word trolls. That's so funny.
Well, I always remember that with everything, it's my interpretations that are my responsibility. Because it's always like I have to see the calls for love. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, I didn't have social media for 5 years, and I barely still use it. Like I only got it back when I started my business, and like recently, I'm still. I mean, like I want to speak, and I love like this kind of stuff, but like and YouTube, or like being able to talk to people, or I really would love to travel, and that's really what I'm asking for, is like giving me that opportunity and give me that pathway there, if that's what's meant for me, to just talk about the course, because it's just so awesome, but like I do think social media, there's so much beauty in it, but we're humans, and so we can also use it for the ego aspects of it as well. And so it is a lesson. And can you find that balance of using it without letting your ego destroy you, without letting your ego like kind of take over. Because I know for me, when I first got back on, it felt like I had to do it every single day. It was part of having a business. This is how a business is done. This is how it's always been. You have to market, you have to do this. And I was listening to all these people, and I realized that no, that's not how it has to be. That's just how my ego is telling me it has to be. And that is what is now being told to me by other people, because that is the projection I'm seeing. And once I let that go, I ironically started getting more clients when I stopped doing stuff on social media. So it's like, don't always think that you have to do things the way that everyone else is doing, or that I don't know. I think I'm just beginning to realize that it's okay to be fearless and try things completely different than anyone else has ever tried them. As long as it's out of love, it'll work.
Yeah. And dropping inward, you keep going deeper and deeper into that prayer and that intuition. We were talking, was it the other night, maybe last night, about, I mentioned how this whole thing, I read with Taylor Swift and the Super Bowl and all these kind of things. It's kind of interesting how what we'll call the public dialogue goes up and into these things, and the people have not really met Taylor.
I don't even know who she is. Like, no one really knows who she is. Like, I mean, it's like, exactly. I mean, it's so funny to me how it's like we need something to judge. We need something outside of ourselves to judge, and that's because we don't want to look inwards, because we know we'd end up judging ourselves. And it's okay it's scary. It is scary to go inside sometimes. Like, I have times when I'm like, oh my God, I feel a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, and I don't want to deal with that right now. But once you go in, and again, I just like be like, hey, Jesus, help me with this. Like, divine self, like, let this go. Can you just like help me feel better? And like, in that instance, it's gone. It's completely gone. And so it's like, instead of like trying to judge, or like going to that judging of other people, like I always, if I start to feel like I'm judging other people, I immediately know that I need to go and release whatever it is that I'm judging about myself, because that's all that's happening. And that's a huge thing for sure. And it is scary sometimes to be like, oh yeah, maybe like it's easier to judge other people than to look about what I'm in pain, like what my pain is. But you know, you're worth taking that time for too, you know, like you're worth loving, like you're worth letting go of that stuff that you shouldn't have. Like I feel like so many people think that they just like aren't worthy of it, and they are absolutely so worthy of it. No matter what you've done in your life or where you are in your life, you are completely deserving of the same amount of love that every other person is, like hands down.
Beautiful. Well, it's been beautiful having this conversation. And again, if you want to talk to Sammy too, we were talking for a few times where you were saying, I really want to meet some people that are around my age that are really into this stuff. And that's one of the ways when we do something like this, like a public talk interview like this, then people, I know if people go below the description, they can find, I put your Facebook page and your website.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, people can just text me. Like I'll be honest with you, I'm either on Facebook every day for a month, or I will be not on Facebook for 3 months. Like it kind of depends on like my energy and my mood. Like I don't allow it to, you know, like control me. So I would say probably email or text is the best way. I don't know if I can write that in the chat, or but I really don't mind if people just text me.
Yeah. And this will go up on YouTube and different Facebook pages. So yeah, if someone has an interest, you can just text her directly or just write a comment. And if you're on Facebook,
I mean, and my phone number is like on everything. Like I you know, it's pretty easy. I mean, everyone has all their stuff on there, so you'll find it on. Like, I have pretty much my email's on everything, whatever, and all. My email I don't check all the time, but I will get back to you eventually. But yeah, no, for sure. And you know, like is it okay if I answer the question that just came up though?
Yes.
It's okay. So, but thank you. What I asked God is for this person to be removed from our lives. Then I was inspired to have people write affidavits for a pending investigation against his brother. But then I thought, am I wrong for wanting that justice to be served? You want to take that one?
Well, I know for me, whenever there's a perceived injustice or grievance or mistreatment or whatever, I remember Jesus has a section in the Course where he talks about the justice of heaven. It's interesting that he puts those together, because you know he says at different points, all things work together for good, and you know, let all things be as exactly as they are, I think is a workbook lesson. So I did one time I did a search. It was probably on Google, and I said I asked ChatGPT or something, how do you deal with like something like defamation or somebody if they seem to do something against you? And it gave a whole list, ChatGPT. But the first one was forgive and do nothing.
No way.
Really, I was like, oh my gosh, this is forgiveness AI.
That's awesome.
I mean, I just was smiling because I thought, well, that fits with the Course's saying that you know, forgive your brother for what he did not do. In other words, it's your misperception of your brother, of your sister as a body and their behaviors and all this and that, and their history and all this and that. But Jesus really is honestly saying, give it to me, and let's see this differently. And I find that my heart just opens up, because when you, like you said that earlier, when you give love, you feel the love that you give, and
Yeah. It's like
that's
you
a
have to
different kind
push
of
past.
justice.
It's like
Yeah,
you have to push past like the human version of them too. Like
yeah,
I'll use my brother as an example because I know he won't mind. Of like, you know, like he has struggled with alcoholism and stuff, and like I always tell him, I'm like, I don't see that part of you. I don't ever see him. I don't ever see him as anything other than my friend, then no different than I see Jay or Jesus, like no different. Like I have just as much love, and I will support and love that soul within him no matter what in this lifetime as the person that he is. And I think that that is like where you really can start to see the beauty of that like being able to do that is looking completely past all the things, all the biases, all the things the egos are trying to say, oh well, they're different, or they're doing this differently than you would have done, or they're hurting you and all this stuff. And you just see their soul, who they are, which is a part of you, because we are all one. So like you're seeing yourself, you know, so you just have to like look through all of that. And then I think when you can finally do that, you just have so much grace, and you actually, like, I feel like a lot of times I have so much empathy for that person as well. And you're like, wow, like there's a lot of things, like you said, you misinterpreted about the situation as well. And
yeah,
so yeah,
yeah,
that's definitely a tough one. But you know, I mean, we are here to learn and to have take action on the course. So
yeah. It's like a call for love, and when we tune into the Holy Spirit, we see the call for love. If there's something we want to share, then wow, we let it pour through us, and we feel lifted up.
yeah, for sure. And then I see that this one said the last question brings to mind the prayer in the course. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? I love that. I love
Yeah.
that because sometimes there have been times in a conversation where I'm like, I'm about to get mad. So I like take a second. I'm like, what like I need to take a breath and like what should I say? And it's usually so different than what I thought I was gonna say because yeah, that is we should just like all write that very big everywhere we go. And then just like and then I really realize it would like go very smoothly.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
good to have the reminders. Like I've got a little bracelet that a friend of mine gave me when I was visiting Florida. It just says "isness," and maybe it's backwards. I don't know if it shows
It
people
says isness.
isness. And I wear this. She gave me this. She made it for me, and so I can just look down at my wrist and see that word looking up. And even when you turn the cubes around, they always say isness. They always spell isness, even those little cubes,
I
like
don't
little
understand. Do
lights.
I not know what isness is? I
Well,
don't.
is present moment.
Oh,
It's like a sniglet. It's probably not a real word, but
okay. I was
is
feeling very
isness. Like
silly. I was like, I have no idea what that. I thought it was
I
like
know.
an acronym or something. I was like, I don't get it.
No. It's she just made it, and I thought, oh yeah. Sometimes I use the word isness, maybe on a broadcast or videos that she made a bracelet, but
Isness.
it's actually good because
This one too,
whatever
actually.
you got one too. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I made this one. It says "Be brave."
Oh my gosh. We both have dice on a little tiny
Yeah,
word.
they're really fun to make. Like I love making stuff. I like write some ones. I'm like, some people like them for human design, so I started like writing like projector or whatever, and then I started just writing like "Be brave" or like "Be
You brave, yeah.
confident" or
Nice.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
you can put it on with your mood for the day. What bracelet am I
yeah,
wearing
I
here?
am trying to be more brave and like, you know, if I want to, you know, do all this stuff that I never thought, like I feel like you got to be brave to do the things that you never thought you could do. So,
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Well, thank you so much for coming on like this. And we've talked like, yeah, we can try to do this again. Sometimes I have travel and kind of a spontaneous life, but it sounds like you do too. That you're pretty spontaneous with everything. So we'll just stay linked up. And it was
yeah, hopefully we'll be able to go be in Mexico at the same time and like sometime soon. Yeah. And I look forward to the adventure and the travel that I know is going to come. And I just want to say, David, you are the most just like your energy is just so incredible. And I feel like the light that you have within you is the example of what we all have within ourselves. And it's an honor, and I love talking to you every time. I feel like so just connected and just like always on that same vibration. And I'm so excited to get to work with you more in the future. So thank you so much for having me on
Thank
here.
you, Sammy, for coming on, because I know, and thank you for sending me a little look at your book. I really enjoyed that. I thought, wow, this is very articulate and very transparent. Just here it is. What you see is what you get, and this is
Yeah.
you.
Yep, I'm still waiting for the rest of that to be downloaded. So, but they, it's not on our time. It's on divine time, right? So, yep, I'm looking forward to that being done. I think it's going to be pretty great.
Yeah, I feel it. Well, thank you everyone too for
Yeah,
tuning
thank
in,
you.
and I see we've got there's like 57, 67 on with us right now. So it's beautiful that people tuned in from around the world or wherever you are and could enjoy this conversation. I hope you had as much fun as we did, because we do this for fun. I think that's what I typed into the text message to you. It's like, let's have some
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, like literally, we we FaceTime each other for like 2 hours, and we just like talk. That's what I'm saying. Like this is like it's just so fun. And I saw someone said that they felt called to my video to connect with you. So yeah, if you want to find my email or my number, go for it. I would love that. So
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. God bless.